Now that we've taken a look at the entire Warzone meta history on this channel, why don't we dive into some of the least favorites along the journey? So here are the top 5 most hated Warzone metas of all time. There's a lot to choose from here, but I just want to keep it to my opinion. I'll leave some honorable mentions at the end as well. But comment your least favorite down below. At number 5, the AUG and M16, aka the burst meta. I truly have no problem with burst weapons being viable, but there's a difference between viable and broken. The 2 burst potential on this was ridiculous. As long as you were hitting chest shots, you were in the clear, and with no recoil, that was honestly pretty easy to do. I like the idea of a precision weapon being in the meta, but not being broken, and they somehow can never get the burst to a stable state. Getting cracked from one burst without any warning makes for a lot of deaths that you simply can't do anything about. I know in Warzone 3 we had the DG56 popping off there for a second. People were really complaining about that, but that doesn't even come close to the M16 and AUG meta we used to have. Now at the number 4 spot, we have the snake shots. I'm gonna kind of bend the rules on this one and incorporate every iteration of them. That's because Warzone 1, 2, and 3 all had their own version of it at one point or another. Even when Warzone 2 got the snake shots through a bug somehow, they still slipped through the cracks in Warzone 3 by some act of God or Satan. I mentioned it in my meta history video, but it was honestly insane how fast they vaulted it in Warzone 3. You'd think they would learn their lesson after the birth of Warzone 1, considering they were broken at the launch of the game, but they would later return in 2 separate times. As far as which was the most broken, it's really hard to tell. But after using the Warzone 3 snake shots before they were vaulted, I think they were the most broken version simply because the damage range fall off didn't feel like it even existed. And for some reason the fire rate seemed a little faster. I don't know, maybe it's just me. It also could be that it's the one I've used the most recently, obviously because the other 2 don't exist anymore, but whatever. This may be the most no skill gun to use on this entire list. Crazy damage, crazy range, crazy rate of fire. The only thing keeping me from putting this higher on the list is that each time they've been meta, they haven't really stayed in the game that long due to it being vaulted or nerfed very quickly. At number 3, we have the RPG. Shortly after the launch of Warzone, it was discovered that RPGs were pretty damn effective, maybe just a little too effective. Aside from destroying vehicles, which was a lot of fun in its own right, the RPG was pretty much a get-out-of-jail-free card since it bailed you out of near any situation. The amount of times I would have somebody cracked and start pushing them just for them to turn around and blast me in one shot was ridiculous. The one-shot blast radius on this thing was wild, and if you were running amped, you reloaded so fast that you could get multiple shots off at a time, even if you didn't one-shot the first time. And also, the overall majority of players didn't use EOD during this stage of the game since most people preferred double time, so one-shotting players was very common. Even if you were running EOD, you could still get killed by it since it only took 1 extra shot. Out of all the guns on this list, this was probably the one I used the most. Honestly, like, probably the most scummy behavior I ever had. Running this with the Grau was way too good for how much skill was required. But after a nerf to the RPG, it was pretty much unusable aside from destroying vehicles, and honestly hasn't seen any viability since. Out of all the gun types, this is the one they've kept at bay the most from being in the meta. I mean, seriously, try using any rocket launcher in Warzone 3 right now and you'll see why. And number 2, we have the R9 and Origin 12. I'm lumping these 2 together as well since it was near the same era of Warzone, but this was the first shotgun meta we saw outside of the snake shots. The Origin 12 was a semi-automatic powerhouse that you could just spam and collect free kills with ease, whereas the R9, or some people like to call it it shot 2 shells out at once and had the Dragon's Breath rounds that would one-tap anyone as long as you hit a decent body shot. Also, the range was pretty stupid. These shotguns are very easy to use and rewarded laziness since you could miss several shots and still win your fight. Compare that to the Lockwood 300 from Warzone 2 and Warzone 3, where sure, it does one shot and like also at a lot of range, but if you miss your shot and you have to reload, that reload takes a long time. You're probably gonna die if you miss your first shot. What really sucks is this is only the first shotgun meta we would see, but then there were so many to come after, but I think this one was the most broken. Before we get to the top pick, I wanted to list a few dishonorable mentions. We had the Bruin, which I know a lot of people are gonna be mad. I know a lot of people love this gun, but honestly, this was the first like actually broken gun in the game. Hit like an LMG, handled like an AR, reloaded like a sub, kicked like a mounted kilo. Also was a DLC gun. Piss off. Broadside shotgun, pretty much everything I said about the R9 and Origin, just not as good. Melted on Ashika though. Now we have the Vanguard Circle Jerk. If you notice, nothing on my list was from Vanguard, and that's because every damn gun in the game was broken. This is also when Warzone started to suck. 10 attachments, laser beams, and a shitty game to go along with it. Boo. Diamante pistols, you could honestly treat these like a shotgun. Insane accuracy, high damage, no skill, not sure what else you need from a hated gun. Now we're at the number 1 spot, which goes to the DMR. One of the most fun aspects to Warzone is the sniping, and this ruined that for everyone for a while. This gun being a 2-shot to the head with no recoil and a fat magazine had you dying before you realized you were even being shot. There was absolutely no reason to be using a sniper when this was around. Very forgiving in that when you missed your shots, it didn't even matter because it was extremely easy to control. Also, you get off as many bullets as fast as you can slam the trigger. Since this was a Cold War gun, it added insult to injury in that you had to level it up in Cold War if you wanted to even use it, which was just plain disrespectful. I'm also going to sprinkle the MAC-10 in here since that's what everyone would pair this gun with, and it was just like the most broken loadout we have ever seen in the game. DMR had you covered at long and mid and honestly even sometimes close range. Having the MAC-10 as a secondary ensured that you had all 3 rangers covered with no sacrifice to any range. Truly the most unfun and unfair state of the game. Now let's compare that to the Interceptor going on right now. Well, honestly, like, it's been a week since it's been totally nerfed to the ground, but people were really complaining about the Interceptor like it was the DMR, but the Interceptor does not even come close to the DMR. With the Interceptor, you had to like manage some recoil, but the DMR was literally just a spam machine. You could hit him anywhere. You didn't have to go for headshots, whereas the Interceptor required at least just like a little bit of skill. Not much, but a little. Whereas the DMR was literally none. But that's my top 5 most hated metas in Warzone. Let me know what yours is down below. Also, as I'm recording this, my meta history video is doing really well right now, so I want to like shout you guys out. It's honestly really wild to see this video do well, so thank you so much. And if you liked, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a dislike. Comment if you'd like, and as always, thank you so much for watching.